At 0300 hours on April 22nd, 2025, while Beijing was busy calculating the cost of Japan's missile deployments across the Ryukyus, something else was happening 900 kilometers to the south that would turn their Taiwan invasion calculus into a complete nightmare. US Marines were quietly unloading equipment on Mavulis Island in the Philippines, a rock so remote most Filipinos couldn't find it on a map. That equipment included truck-mounted launchers that look civilian until they fire missiles capable of sinking destroyers from 115 miles away. In a recent video, we showed you how Japan locked down the northern approach to Taiwan with missile batteries on Yonaguni Island. While Chinese war planners obsessed over that threat, the United States and Philippines spent 18 months turning the southern backdoor into something far worse. The Luzon Strait, China's only deep water route to the Pacific Ocean, and the sole path for their nuclear submarines to reach operational depth, just became a 100-mile wide shooting gallery where every Chinese ship becomes a target with nowhere to hide. Here's what makes this trap so devastating. It doesn't just threaten China's invasion plans. It threatens to turn their most expensive military assets into the world's largest artificial reef program. And by the time you understand the full kill chain, you'll see why Beijing's nuclear deterrent just became a bluff they can't back up. Let's establish the geography, because this is where strategy becomes physics. The Luzon Strait sits between Taiwan's southern tip and the Philippines' northernmost islands. It's 220 miles wide at its broadest point, narrowing to just 88 miles between Taiwan and Mavulis Island. That's roughly the distance from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore. You could drive it in 90 minutes if there was a road. There isn't a road. There are now missile launchers. This strait is the only deep water passage between the South China Sea and the Philippine Sea. Everything else is shallow, littered with reefs, and completely unsuitable for large warships. Chinese nuclear submarines based at Yulin need this channel to reach the Pacific. Chinese carrier groups need it to operate beyond the first island chain. Chinese amphibious forces invading Taiwan from the south need it because every alternative route adds 2,000 miles and several weeks. Block the Luzon Strait, and you haven't just complicated China's Taiwan invasion plans. You've trapped the entire People's Liberation Army Navy inside the South China Sea like fish in a barrel. The weapon system doing this blocking is called NMESIS, Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. What it actually is: a modified Joint Light Tactical Vehicle carrying 2 naval strike missiles and operated remotely. The truck can be flown into position by an Osprey, driven to some jungle clearing on one of the Batanes Islands, and left there with nobody inside. When a Chinese destroyer enters its engagement envelope, operators hundreds of miles away send the launch command over encrypted satellite links. The missiles fire, the truck drives itself to a new position using GPS navigation, and Chinese radar operators trying to figure out where the attack came from find nothing but empty jungle. Shoot the missile. Scoot before counter-battery fire arrives. The naval strike missile itself is genuinely terrifying if you're a Chinese naval officer. It weighs 900 pounds, carries a 275-pound warhead, and flies at high subsonic speeds just above the wave tops, staying below most search radars until the final seconds before impact. It uses GPS, inertial navigation, and an infrared seeker that identifies specific ships by their heat signatures. You can't jam GPS when the missile also has INS. You can't spoof infrared when it's comparing your destroyer's signature against a database of known targets. The missile approaches from multiple axes, maneuvering to attack from the direction with the weakest defenses. Chinese destroyers mount their primary air defense systems forward and aft, with reduced coverage on the beam. The NSM knows this and adjusts accordingly. When it hits, 275 pounds of high explosive detonating inside a ship's hull starts fires, destroys machinery, and kills damage control teams before they can respond. Here's the math Beijing is now doing. Each NMESIS launcher costs approximately $4 million with missiles included. Each Type 052D destroyer costs $500 to $900 million to build, and carries a crew of 280 trained sailors. The US Marines can deploy 50 NMESIS trucks across the Batanes and northern Luzon for $200 million total. China would need dozens of destroyers to guarantee safe passage for an invasion fleet, and every single one becomes a target. Lose just 10 destroyers to NMESIS strikes, and you're looking at $5 billion in hulls gone, plus 2,800 experienced crew members who cannot be quickly replaced. Plus, the entire invasion timetable now in shambles because your escort screen just vanished. But before those missiles even launch, electronic warfare systems are already destroying Chinese coordination. Batanes hosts specialized EW elements that flood the electromagnetic spectrum with noise, break data links, and distort navigation signals. On Chinese destroyers, radar displays fill with ghost contacts. GPS positions drift by hundreds of meters. Communications cut in and out. Your formation was supposed to execute a coordinated defense plan. Instead, every ship is isolated, fighting blind, while actual missiles approach at sea level. NMESIS only handles ships within 115 miles. For everything beyond that range, for targets on the Chinese mainland, the United States deployed Typhon. And if NMESIS is a sniper rifle, Typhon is an artillery battery that graduated from Revenge School with honors. The Typhon weapon system looks like shipping containers stacked on a truck because it is shipping containers stacked on a truck. Inside are vertical launch cells loaded with SM-6 missiles and Tomahawk cruise missiles. The system can be airlifted by C-17, driven to a firing position, set up in under an hour, launch its full payload, and be gone before Chinese reconnaissance satellites finish updating their targeting data. The SM-6 works in surface-to-surface mode with a range exceeding 240 miles. It flies at Mach 3.5, carries a 140-pound warhead, and uses an active radar seeker. Against ships, it dives nearly vertical, punching through deck armor before detonating inside the hull. Against aircraft, it simply runs them down. A J-16 fighter doing Mach 1.8 at maximum speed still gets caught by an SM-6 doing Mach 3.5. The Tomahawk carries a 1,000-pound warhead, flies at 550 miles per hour, and has a range exceeding 1,000 miles. It uses terrain-following radar to hug the ground at altitudes below 100 feet, making it nearly impossible to detect until it's overhead. From Camilo Osias Naval Base in Cagayan Province, a Typhon battery can reach the entire Taiwan Strait and Chinese ports at Fuzhou and Xiamen, where invasion fleets would assemble. Deploy 10 launchers, and you're looking at 40 Tomahawks that can turn Chinese port facilities into burning wreckage before the invasion fleet even sets sail. The economic calculation keeps getting worse. Each Tomahawk costs $2 million. Each Chinese type 071 amphibious transport dock costs $200 to $300 million and carries 800 troops, 20 armored vehicles, and 4 hovercraft. Sink one Type 071 with a Tomahawk, and the return on investment is 100 to 1. China has exactly 8 Type 071s in service. Sink 3, achievable with a single Typhon volley, and the invasion loses 2,400 troops and 60 armored vehicles before anyone reaches the beach. But just when Chinese naval planners thought it couldn't get worse, a third weapon system entered the equation. And this one doesn't hide. It just goes faster than anything trying to stop it. In February 2024, Manila finalized a deal with India for BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. The BrahMos is fundamentally different from American systems. The NSM is stealthy. The Tomahawk is subsonic but terrain-hugging. The BrahMos doesn't care about stealth. It just goes faster than anything trying to stop it. The BrahMos flies at Mach 2.8, which is 2,100 miles per hour. It carries a 660-pound warhead and conducts violent terminal maneuvers to defeat point defense systems. Chinese destroyers carry the HQ-10 close-in weapon system designed to intercept incoming missiles. The HQ-10 has a maximum engagement speed of about Mach 2.5. The BrahMos is faster. A missile system designed to intercept targets at Mach 2.5 cannot physically catch something traveling at Mach 2.8. The BrahMos doesn't need to evade defenses, it just outruns them. The Philippines is deploying these systems on mobile launches across Luzon and the Batanes. Even at the export variant's range of 180 miles, a BrahMos battery on Mavulis Island can cover the entire Luzon Strait. Chinese ships crossing that strait face an impossible choice: take evasive action and slow down, extending transit time and fuel consumption, or maintain speed and hope their point defense systems can intercept missiles traveling faster than those systems are designed to engage. Now combine all three systems and watch the nightmare fully materialize. Chinese invasion fleet assembles at Xiamen. Typhon Tomahawks hit the port before they leave, sinking ships at dock and destroying fuel storage. The fleet gets underway anyway because Beijing has no choice. As they approach the Luzon Strait, NMESIS launchers fire from Batanes Island. The sea-skimming missiles force Chinese destroyers to activate their radar, revealing their positions. BrahMos missiles launch from Mavulis Island, targeting the same destroyers now backlit by their own emissions. The destroyers attempt to engage both threats simultaneously: subsonic missiles from the west, supersonic missiles from the north. Their fire control computers weren't designed for this. Something gets through. Multiple somethings get through. The fleet fragments. Damaged ships fall back. Escorts break formation. Amphibious transports, now lacking escorts, continue forward because the invasion schedule cannot accommodate delays. More NMESIS missiles launch from Sabtang Island. The transports, designed for beach assault rather than fleet defense, have minimal anti-missile capabilities. They start sinking. Thousands of troops who spent months training for an amphibious assault never reach the beach. They drown in the Luzon Strait while watching their ships burn. This isn't speculation. This is what the hardware does when deployed, according to its design specifications. This is why the Philippines granted the United States access to 9 EDCA sites across the archipelago in 2023 and 2024. These locations provide firing positions dominating the Luzon Strait, the South China Sea, and the approaches to Taiwan. Behind all this hardware stands the United States Marine Corps reorganizing its entire Pacific strategy around expeditionary advanced base operations. Small, mobile marine units dispersed across these islands, armed with anti-ship missiles, fed targeting data by Japanese radars and US reconnaissance assets, all tied together through encrypted networks. It's not Japan over here, America over there, Philippines in the middle. It's one unified kill web where a Japanese radar track can trigger an American missile launch, where Philippine spotters can cue a marine NMESIS strike, where everything connects into a single coordinated system designed to make the Taiwan Strait impassable. Why would the Philippines take this risk? Because for Manila, this isn't ideology, it's survival math. Over 90% of Philippine trade flows through waters around Taiwan. If Taiwan falls and China controls those sea lanes, the Philippine economy becomes a hostage. Every shipping route, every fuel tanker, every container of imports suddenly depends on Beijing's goodwill. That's not a treaty relationship, that's vassalage. The strategic implications are cascading. Japan locked the northern approach with missiles across the Ryukyus. The Philippines just locked the southern approach with NMESIS, Typhon, and BrahMos across the Batanes and Luzon. Taiwan sits in the middle with Harpoon missiles, indigenous Xiongfeng anti-ship missiles, and Patriot air defense systems. If you drew a box on a map connecting Yonaguni Island to Mavulis Island to Taiwan, you would see a 500-mile wide kill zone where every Chinese ship and aircraft becomes a target with multiple overlapping engagement envelopes. To invade Taiwan, China needs to move approximately 500,000 troops across the strait on amphibious ships and landing craft. Calculate the fleet size needed: 50 to 60 large amphibious ships, 200 plus smaller landing craft, 100 logistics vessels, 50 destroyers and frigates for escort, 20 submarines for screening, and 300+ aircraft for air cover. Now calculate how many survive the transit through kill zones covered by Japanese, American, and Philippine missiles working in coordinated fire networks. Conservative estimates, assuming just 10% loss rates, yield catastrophic results. 5 to 6 large amphibious ships sunk, 20 landing craft destroyed, 10 logistics vessels gone, 5 destroyers at the bottom, 2 submarines lost, and 30 aircraft shot down. That's before the fleet reaches Taiwan. That's before Taiwanese shore-based missiles engage. That's before American carrier groups arrive. The invasion hasn't started, and China has already lost 50,000 troops, $15 billion in ships and aircraft, and any hope of achieving surprise. But there's one more problem Beijing faces. China operates 6 Type 094 nuclear ballistic missile submarines. These submarines are China's sea-based nuclear deterrent. Their guarantee that even if a first strike destroyed their land-based missiles, they could still retaliate from the ocean. Those submarines need deep water to operate safely. They need access to the Pacific Ocean to patrol outside the range of American anti-submarine warfare assets. The only route to the Pacific is through the Luzon Strait. Close the Luzon Strait, and China's sea-based nuclear deterrent gets trapped inside the South China Sea, where American Virginia-class attack submarines can hunt them in relatively confined waters. American submarine commanders have been mapping Chinese submarine routes for decades, cataloging acoustic signatures, identifying patrol patterns. If war starts and those Type 094s are still bottled up in the South China Sea, they become targets before they ever launch. China's nuclear deterrent becomes a bluff that America can call. This is why Chinese state media has started running pieces about breaking the first island chain through military force. This is why Chinese military exercises near Taiwan have intensified. This is why Chinese diplomats are suddenly very interested in negotiating with the Philippines. They recognize they're running out of time. Every month that passes, more missiles get deployed, more fire control networks come online, and more coordination happens between American, Japanese, and Philippine forces. So what are China's options? Launch the invasion anyway and accept catastrophic losses. Attempt to destroy the missile networks first with massive preemptive strikes, which brings the United States into the war immediately under mutual defense treaties. Or back down, accept that Taiwan is now effectively out of reach, and explain to the Chinese public why decades of reunification rhetoric was just talk. None of those options are acceptable to Beijing. All of those options are now their only choices. That's what happens when you let potential adversaries turn geography into a weapon system. The first island chain isn't a line on a map anymore. It's a wall of fire, and China is on the wrong side. Beijing bet everything on reunification with Taiwan being achievable through a short, decisive military operation before American forces could effectively respond. That bet assumed Japan staying neutral, the Philippines remaining passive, and Taiwan standing alone. All three assumptions just died. Japan declared Taiwan's defense a vital national interest. The Philippines handed the United States forward basing that puts Chinese mainland ports within missile range. Taiwan keeps building more missiles and fortifying more beaches. Mavulis Island isn't just another military base. It's the final brick in a wall that turns the Taiwan Strait from invasion corridor into death trap. It's the moment the southern back door closed, leaving China's invasion plans trapped inside a box where every move gets punished with missiles they cannot counter and losses they cannot sustain. If you were sitting in Beijing's Central Military Commission right now, staring at this strategic map where the north is locked by Japan and the south is sealed by the Philippines, what's your play? Do you launch anyway and hope the missiles miss? Do you admit the invasion is impossible and risk domestic upheaval? Or do you start building a time machine because the opportunity you needed passed 10 years ago? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to see how the rest of this kill web comes together, hit that subscribe button because we're breaking down every piece of hardware that just turned the Pacific into a no-go zone for Beijing. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.